Speaker.
The Leader of the Opposition, David.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 1,000 New Zealanders a week are travelling across the Tasman to Australia. 1,000 a week. And that's despite that government's assurance when it came into office that that flow was going to be stemmed. Nothing has happened. In fact, 1,000 a week, Mr. Speaker, is a record for New Zealand. There has never been more people going across the Tasman to Australia and not coming back. And many of those people, Mr. Speaker, are our best and our brightest. The people that we spend thousands and thousands of dollars educating are travelling to Australia to help Australia get richer. And what we have in terms of hope for those people, Mr. Speaker, is a finance minister from this government delivering, we hear, a zero budget. Well, I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, a zero budget means that there's zero more money coming. And that means there's zero growth in the economy. That means there's zero more taxes coming. That means inevitably, there's zero more ideas or any new ideas, Mr. Speaker. This is a zero government that is giving our young people zero hope, that is going across to causing them to go across to Australia. Australia, which has grown at about 10 times what New Zealand has grown over the course of this government's term in office. 2% growth on average compared to less than 5%. That's what the statistics show, Mr. Speaker, that if you have that sort of differential, inevitably you're going to get young people and everybody moving across from New Zealand to Australia. And the result is that what we're getting back here, and it's being lauded and boasted about by our finance minister, is that we have a great place to invest in. Except that this great place is based on low wages. So the Australian companies that want to come into New Zealand, Mr. Speaker, are coming here to take advantage of our low wage rates. And inevitably, what's happening is that our people are going over there for higher wage rates. And if you think there's not higher wage rates over there, Mr. Speaker, then they've got another thing coming. And the only one idea that they seem to have, which is inculcated into this budget, is to sell our assets. Selling our assets, Mr. Speaker, is the only big idea that this government has come up with. The only trouble is that nobody knows quite how big an idea, because the Prime Minister said a year ago it was going to be $10 billion that we're going to get back from the selling of our precious power companies. And then it was $6.6 billion, Mr. Speaker, and then it was $6 billion, and then it was it's a guess, and not even a best guess at that. And that best guess, Mr. Speaker, is rubbed off onto the Minister of Social Development, because she guesses around about $1 billion might be saved from her ministry, but she can't quite tell us. So this entire government, Mr. Speaker, is based on guesses. Not only that, Mr. Speaker, but our power companies, they return more than the cost of borrowing. They actually return more than we're going to sell them for. And what was the promise at the election, Mr. Speaker? Well, the promise was that the mums and dads in New Zealand, the mums and dads, gosh, it's a cutesy saying, isn't it? What does that really mean? It means the people who have got money to invest in shares, which is not absolutely everybody, but probably the people who got the benefit from the tax cut that this government handed out last year. But the mums and dads are going to be at the front of the queue, except that there's no guarantee in the legislation that they're going to be there. There's no guarantee at all. And the foreign ownership would be a minority, but there's no guarantee that that's going to be the case either. And if we look at Contact Energy as one example, Mr. Speaker, Contact Energy is owned by foreigners to the tune of around 66%. So 2/3 of our Contact Energy power company is owned by foreigners, but we have not got the courage to be able to say to New Zealanders, follow through on the promise from last year, follow through from the election promise that mums and dads are going to be at the front of the queue. So here we have it, Mr. Speaker, with 1,000 people going from New Zealand across to Australia every week. in record numbers, Mr Speaker, and what we have...
Order. The Honourable... the question is that the motion be agreed to. The Honourable Paula Bennett.